What's going on? This is the Saturday Down South podcast. I am Connor O'Gara. Will, belated Merry Christmas. How was the day?
It was awesome, man. I can't give my girlfriend Andrea enough credit. She did great on Thanksgiving with the Cajun family, and then she went through the car wash ESPN style of kind of my three families here on Christmas, and it was great. The jokes were flying. They were all hitting. They were on time. They were what we like to see, nothing off script. So yeah, it was kind of like the thing you hope for. I got to see both my sisters, my dad, my step family. So, man, modern Christmas, what can you do?
First Christmas with the significant other is a big deal. Very big deal.
Oh, yeah.
Because she wasn't there last year, was she?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, that's there's and especially if you've got a lot of moving pieces and it's not just, 3 or 4 family members, although maybe it's a little bit better to do it that way. And I've thought about this because my mom, as I've said, is one of 12. And so I remember that first time when Lauren is meeting extended family, and I think she had like a wedding or something like that squeezed in before Christmas, but it's a big deal. And it's kind of like one of those things where you at that point, you kind of have to figure things out. All right, how do I feel like being in this person in this setting? Because Christmas, obviously you're going to just be forced into so many conversations with people that you haven't talked to in a long time, but that's good.
It's like
good
the year one coaches thing we talk about, right? It's like, it's not a big deal, but it kind of is. It's like, we would like it if you did figure this out.
Yeah. It doesn't mean that you're locked in and you're going to be great, but don't mess this up or do something too stupid. And then all of a sudden I'm questioning everything. So glad to hear that you got through it. Yeah. Quiet little day here. We stayed in town for Christmas. We're meeting with family. My mom was in town a week and a half ago, and then we're going to hopefully be seeing Lauren's family really, really soon as well. So relatively low key Christmas here. Nothing too crazy. And yeah, we're back at it. We are, here's the plan for today. We have Quinn Ewers coming up in a little bit. Yes, that Quinn Ewers, great to chat with him. We did that on Sunday. So just after Texas's first round win against Clemson. And then we're going to have Lad of the Week as well. But first, we have 9 SEC bowl games to preview. We're going to save the playoff quarterfinal preview for Monday. And just a heads up, we recorded this show as late as possible, in part because that's just how the schedule lined up. I already talked about how weird it is, Christmas being on a Wednesday, Christmas Eve on a Tuesday, and it just didn't make sense to record on back-to-back days to record this on Monday when there was just a million things still going on. So we're recording this, I realize, very, very late relative to when these games are going to be played. But there was also no point in previewing bowl games 2 weeks in advance with the portal moves and opt-outs. So hopefully we're going to have our bases covered, but we're not going to bat 1,000. So if we make a mistake today, just know that there's a lot to track. Action Network, if you want to follow along with us, has a really, really good updated tracker of portal, opt-out, injuries, all these different things, because if you're gambling on these games, please do so responsibly and understand that you should probably have all the information, because there's a lot. A lot of minimal spreads in this, which feels like Vegas's way of saying, you know what? Anything is kind of on the table for these games, and nothing will be particularly surprising. So yeah, some non-playoff SEC bowl games to break down today. We have a lot of stuff to get to, so let's just get right into it, Will.
For sure. Yeah, and I'm looking here. This is just kind of a full circle moment here because, I haven't seen a full Oklahoma injury report since like week 1.
Oh, buddy.
But really looking at it is a thing of beauty. And this puts everything together here because I'm looking at it and I see Nick Anderson right there. And I know he's in Baton Rouge. So to that point, it really is impossible for even the people who are gambling and setting lines to figure out who is on which teams. And again, starting with Oklahoma, who we didn't know was on their team week to week every week.
Yes. Great place to start for this discussion with all those opt-outs and portal entries. The Armed Forces Bowl has Oklahoma as a 3-point favorite against Navy. The over-under, is related to that. It is 1 non-freshman wide receiver for Oklahoma. Deion Burks is maybe going to be playing in this one, maybe not. He is healthy enough to be able to play. He's returning, or at least that's what we know. He is returning to Oklahoma for the 2025 season as of right now.
So from their standpoint, they're like, we better not play him because he's coming back next year. We don't want him to get hurt in this game.
Maybe. There's something to be said for that. I don't know if that's going to be the mindset, but the guy's been banged up for most of the year, unfortunately. If the Purdue transfer doesn't play, 8 freshman wide receivers for Oklahoma in this one.
Can't make really confusing meeting rooms. Shouts out to their wide receiver coach. Like, is this a dig? Like 5-yard, 10-yard curl?
Brent Venables is asking bowl officials, guys, I realize they're only going to be juniors in high school, but you know what? Like, if we could just let these guys play, they're verbally committed, they're fine. Mm-hmm. Just have them sign a pregame waiver, whatever. We'll make it happen. Yikes! Oklahoma has obviously dealt with pretty unprecedented attrition at the wide receiver position during the regular season, but post-regular season, J.J. Hester, he transfers to Kentucky. He was one of the guys who was actually playing when their top 5 receivers were out. Nick Anderson, who we already mentioned, he's at LSU. Brandon Thompson, he transferred to Mississippi State. Jaleel Farouk, he transferred to Maryland. And if we want to include tight ends, there's another Oklahoma to LSU transfer because that's where Bauer Sharp ended up. On top of that, defensively, you don't have your 2 rocks. You don't have Danny Stutzman. You don't have Billy Bowman. They're not going to be playing in this game. I wouldn't hate on those guys for opting out of a bowl game with the 6-6 team that's facing a service academy when those guys
they have tremendous respect for the troops, Connor. That's all that is. It's not that they don't want to play in the game. It's that they don't want to, injure the troops. They want to show support.
Good point. And also probably like this would be a terrible game to get hurt in with the way that service academies are instructed how to block. They obviously
and defensive film. If you try to get drafted, chase around some dude who's going to be an admiral or a general one day.
Yeah, not great. So no blame to be thrown at Stutzman or Bowman, who have just been obviously so important for that team. So all of that we know, and Oklahoma's still favored in this game. That's pretty wild. Kind of speaks also to the underclassmen recruiting efforts of Brent Venables and what he's done there, and why there are a lot of Oklahoma fans who are optimistic that year 4 will be better and that this isn't going to be a situation in which he is on the hot seat going into the year and all of a sudden Oklahoma has no choice but to fire him. The recruiting efforts have been very well documented, why it's been different from Lincoln Riley and the style of player that they're bringing in and where they're trying to beef up things in the trenches. But Michael Hawkins, yes, starting in the bowl game because Jackson Arnold is off to Auburn. As we saw, a little bit of juice. Michael Hawkins Jr. comes in as a true freshman and is able to play well in that game against Tennessee and then leads them to a comeback win at Auburn. I think he's good enough to lead Oklahoma to a win, even though Navy is basically at full strength coming off of a 9-win season. This is just bowl game 101 right now. A team has roster issues galore, and if they lose, nobody should be surprised. But at the same time, you're kind of like, you know what? Maybe they actually do have a chance. I think Oklahoma wins this one ugly, 17-13. Just the type of game where you go, I don't really feel great about either of these offenses. You can debate the significance of this one. I think Brent Venables, if he could draw it up, would prefer to end with a winning season and not be an OU coach who suffered two losing seasons. Bob Stoops, of course, never had a losing season. The only OU coach to have multiple losing seasons, there's 2 of them in the last century. And yes, I said last century. John Blake, who was the coach, obviously just before Stoops, and then Benny Owen, who clinched that exactly 100 years ago, back in the Calvin Coolidge administration, for those keeping track.
Benny Owen, I knew that was going to be an old school name.
Benny Owen is a name that I think could still play now. Oh, yeah. Benny Owen, he's rising through the ranks. He's a group of 5 coach. He's a guy to keep an eye on. He's done really, really nice things at a place like, I don't know, Rice, but keep him in mind. Benny Owen, he's only 38, but one of these guys to keep an eye on for a big-time job. Oklahoma getting to 7-6 instead of 6-7 in the grand scheme of things of Oklahoma history, not going to mean a whole lot, but Brent Venables would like to get the bad taste of 2024 out of his mouth by winning against a service academy, I would think.
Yeah, I think, this is a game that if you're an Oklahoma fan, I would just go ahead and skip it. This is similar to the vibe from the LSU-Kansas State game a couple of years ago, where even if you win this game in a blowout, you're not going to feel great. You're not going to feel awesome about it. So I would say, you got basically 2 service academy teams here, right? You have one team that is starting Michael Hawkins Jr., and you have one team that's a service academy. So when I think about it like that, one of these teams planned to be a service academy of the game of this year. I like that team in this game.
One of these teams, who's got more talent remaining? Well, I shouldn't say talent. Whose receiver room is in better shape for this one? A service academy or Oklahoma's?
I know Navy's is in better shape.
Yeah,
which was good point. Better wide receiver, but I might take their room as well, just because they got some dudes that know where their classes are. So yeah, I think this game doesn't matter at all. It doesn't affect how I change Brent Venables, but I would not want to play in this game if I were him, and I'm taking Navy.
Friday at noon, I'll be locked in. Can't wait.
I'll be locked in. Trust. I said if you're an Oklahoma fan, you don't watch this. I'm a sicko. I'll be watching it.
Because if you're an Oklahoma fan and if you're at work, although it's the least productive work week in the American workforce calendar of the year, so you're probably not working, just, hop on the Peloton and watch it or something like that. Do something else that's productive while you're watching this game, but don't build your day around it. It's not worth it. All right, Birmingham Bowl. Speaking of 3-point spreads, Georgia Tech 3-point favorite against the beloved Vanderbilt Commodores, America's team, some are saying.
How much could tickets be for this game? Keep talking.
That's a good question, Will. Why don't you look that up right now?
Actually,
hop on StubHub.
I could swing by this one. Hold on.
Yeah, just see what ticket prices are going for, because there's some intrigue with this one. The over/under 1.5 mentions of turn. I'm going to leave it to 1 for me personally today, because I felt just awkward enough saying that one time. I don't want to say it multiple times, so I won't. Vandy got the best news possible. We haven't had an in-depth discussion about the return of Diego Pavia, but mercy, the NCAA just continues to be like Bama and come up short against the entire state of Tennessee. Yeah, sorry, that was sitting right there. I'm not the first person to make that joke. I'm not the last. But Diego Pavia playing in this game, returning for Vandy, quietly a fun bowl game matchup. And we need to appreciate fun bowl game matchups because they're dwindling a bit in these non-playoff settings. Perfect for a Friday afternoon, maybe perfect for a Friday afternoon in which you could just, drive on over. Well,
$40 to get at this game. I might be watching Diego Pavia. This feels good value.
I'm just saying, you get some good seats. You're creeping up there by the end of the game. You're not going to be dapping up Diego Pavia by the fourth quarter of this game, but I wouldn't rule it out. I wouldn't at this point. Noteworthy Vandy opt-outs in this game, pretty minimal as of this recording. Georgia Tech's going to be without top receiver Eric Singleton. He opted to take over the Keandre Lambert-Smith role at Auburn. Really, really nice pickup in the portal for Hugh Freeze. But Haynes King, Diego Pavia, extra rest after those guys were banged up down the stretch. I hope that could be worth $40, maybe, or less by the time this rolls. Get those tickets Friday morning. Tell me what those are.
We're calling some audibles here. These are two quarterbacks that I feel like really love. They're two Asher Ross matching up. They really have nothing to lose here. I think they might be able to be playing.
I love it. Okay, like they're two of my favorite quarterbacks to watch in college football. Vandy's one of 2 SEC underdogs in the 9 SEC bowl games that we're going to be talking about today, and I think with good reason. Tech is the perfect throw out the record team, and Vandy is the perfect throw out what you know about this team historically. Right? Mm-hmm. It feels like every time our attention is actually on Tech, Brent Key delivers. This is his moment. This is what he gets up for. And when we're not paying attention to Tech, they lose a game that they have no business losing. Probably a good thing that they had 3 weeks off after the Georgia game with 8 overtimes. There's definitely a chance also that Tim Beck is just in his bag with extra time to prepare. And we're reminded that this is still Diego Pavia's world and we're just living in it. But as much as I would love to just say, screw it, trust Diego Pavia to figure it out, I think Haynes King is going to give Vandy some problems. Of note, Haynes King going to be back in 2025. How about that? I want to talk about old quarterbacks. He's going to be 24 in a couple of weeks. Pavia is going to be 24 in spring. So it's one of the oldest matchups of quarterbacks that we have this year. It's still not quite what we had for, what was it? That was the largest gap of quarterbacks in age with the Cutter Boley, Tyler Shuck, Louisville, Kentucky game, the way that broke down, those guys being like 6 years apart in age. But these guys very, very close in age, both very old by college quarterback standards, even today's college quarterback standards.
I'll be sitting there on the sidelines giving them advice on zoysia grass, landscaping. And, you got to get the look, guys. You got to plan it out first, and they'll be like, thanks.
There are guys. Well, there are guys that are this age that are buying houses. Yep. I'm just saying. And I've told the story before of like how my brother in Lexington was Oh, who is he selling a house to? Kentucky's backup quarterback. What's his name?
I didn't narrow it down.
I know. From Tarleton State. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name right now, but he was like in the market for buying a house in Lexington. Now, obviously, like he had roots there, so it's a little bit different. But dudes are buying houses. dudes are buying houses. They're willing to be able to make that investment. They can, and these guys have obviously done well for themselves and playing college football still. I think this is going to be a game in which Tech's rushing attack is just too much for Vandy. And this is like a 28-17, how did Tech end up losing 5 games type of matchup. But never rule out the idea of one last Diego Pavia, how do you like me now win in 2024. If that happens, we'll look back and we'll go, man, just picture telling someone after week 0 that Diego Pavia would beat that Georgia Tech team who had just taken down Florida State, and he's going to beat Bama. He's going to beat Auburn at Auburn. That'd be going to beat Kentucky in Lexington, which Kentucky obviously ended up being terrible. That'd be a pretty nice list of victories for Diego Pavia. And oh, by the way, you'd be able to say you led Vandy to a winning season. That's also on the line for the Doors in this one.
Yeah, for sure. Still inverse Brent Venables. No, I think that, looking up and down these two rosters, I feel like Tech has lost a little bit more. I think these are very similar teams. You hit on it. They have older quarterbacks, very good schools in these kind of metro markets. I think both have under their head coaches who are pretty intense guys, been able to shock these bigger ranked teams. And to your point, Tech starting the year with FSU, finishing with Georgia, pretty taking out this bowl game, obviously pretty poetic in that sense. I think the fact that, we've seen the waiver come through for Pavia. We've seen like the short amount of opt-outs here. I like Vandy in this one, but at the same time, again, this is going to be, what I like in this game? They got to make sure that they use the deepest field paint they have, the paint that'll never come off. Because I think both of these quarterbacks would love like the Tim Tebow style shot of like the paint off of the white or their jersey, yelling at somebody. Yeah, exactly. Like, so you got to make sure that you got the stadium really well painted, all the grass is taken care of, because these guys are going to be slipping, sliding, pushing people. And I think we're going to end up with some heroic image. It could be Haynes King. It could be Diego Pavia. It's electric because they match these two quarterbacks up.
I don't know the colors for the Birmingham Bowl, so apologies. I'm blanking on what the logo exactly looks like. But if we can go Tebow, Florida State, what was that, 2008, I want to say? Yeah, 2008. Mm-hmm. Real deep maroon. And I know we've said some negative things about maroon on this show, but deep maroon in the end zone with these two quarterbacks, that's a way to kind of amp this up, make this a little bit more epic. Maybe what you do, you just get a ticket for the second half of this game when it's $5, or it's the old Oklahoma playing at Kansas circa 2021. Just let as many people into the stadium as possible for the second half.
That's a good point.
Just walk right in. Just see what you can get away with. How far away is the stadium from your mom's house?
I gotta figure that out because this is a protective stadium, which I think that's where the Stallions play, the USFL
Birmingham
team.
Stallions,
yeah. So I gotta get on that.
Yeah, we're not talking Legion Field here. Yeah, that's an entirely different. Yeah, okay. All right. Well, hopefully we'll get a first hand account from you from this game on Friday. Another game Friday, Liberty Bowl, Texas Tech, Arkansas. Arkansas is a 1.5 point favorite. The over/under I have is 3 references to the last time that Arkansas was in the Liberty Bowl. You remember it? It was 2 years ago. Not that long. It was a kind of a maddening game the way that it ended. Arkansas outlasted Kansas after the Hogs got flagged for that targeting penalty on Jalen Daniels as they're trying to keep him out of the end zone in double overtime. They're like, now's a good time to call targeting. It's like he's protecting the goal line in double overtime. What are we doing? And it was like a very borderline call that you're just like, okay, we've gone too far with this. I still hate that call, even though Arkansas ended up winning that game. They get to return to Memphis, albeit with a shell of the roster that it had in the regular season. Oh my gosh, a mass exodus for a team that did not have a coaching staff change with its top assistants or its head coach.
Action you wouldn't want to go on vacation with Bobby Petrino?
Look, I don't know. I don't want to pretend that I know what Bobby Petrino is like on vacation, because as Stanley from The Office has taught us, people can get into different modes when they're on vacation. So I don't want to assume anything with Robert Patrick and how he likes to wind down. I don't think that he will be in vacation mode when he is trying to find ways to move the ball down the field, especially when he looks around and realizes, oh my God, my guy Taylor Green has nobody around him. Nobody. Will, listen to this.
Why is he playing in this game?
I know, right? Action Network's report of this, like with the opt-outs and injuries, it's great. It's fun. I recommend everybody go read it right now. They list the 13 guys that Arkansas has in the portal, and then Arkansas, arguably their best 4 players opting out of this game. No Andrew Armstrong, who deserved to be first team All-SEC. That was a bit of a joke. No Landon Jackson in this one, who is making a recovery from that scary injury he suffered against Mizzou, but he's opting out. He's getting ready for the NFL draft. Totally understandable. No Jaquindon Jackson in this one. No Eric Gregory. Then they say in this report that Action Network has, Arkansas has just 6 scholarship offensive linemen available. And then they list the snap counts for the offensive skill players who will be around Taylor Green in this one. Isaac Tesla is the only one with more than 115 snaps. Not to do the whole snaps thing with Travis Hunter again. Travis Hunter had a whole lot of football games, which he's played more than 115 snaps. Mm-hmm. That lets you know, all right? For a team that is trying to build some sort of a foundation, and I would argue kind of rose above expectations a little bit, that's pretty telling. That's not great. That's not something that Sam Pittman's going to be going up to Hunter Yurachek and saying, hey, I need a restructured contract. I need more years tacked on to the end of my deal. I don't think Jimmy Sexton's going to be able to bring that to the table and say, look, this is why my guy is building something here. Although if you win a game like this, maybe that speaks to it even more. I don't know. Taylor Green is playing. He's the Fresh Prince meme in the empty room. The overused Fresh Prince meme. We've gone a little too far with that. This feels appropriate for it. It does.
This is like some kind of a weird, like Osmosis Jones style, like buddy cop movie where he's just out there by himself. He's been taking bad hits all year. When he has protection from a decent offensive line, he's taking terrible hits. And now it's like, oh, me and 3 guys I met hooping at the Y are playing receiver. This is great.
Sure, why not? Oh, look, Taylor Green needs reps, and so he needs more reps in the Bobby Petrino offense. And so I support it from that standpoint. I hope he stays healthy in this game. I hope he doesn't just look around and go, oh my gosh, I have to carry the football 25 times. Don't rule it out. The good news for Arkansas, besides just Taylor Green, Texas Tech is dealing with major attrition with all forms of its personnel. New coordinators on both sides of the ball. Starting quarterback is out. 7 guys in the portal. You've got a couple of defensive line starters who are hurt. Not sure that All-American tailback Taj Brooks is going to be available. He traveled. He hasn't said if he's playing or not. I don't know. If he plays, Arkansas will have faced the likes of Ollie Gordon II, Le'Veon Moss, Jarquez Hunter, Dylan Sampson, and Brooks. That is a murderer's row of talented tailbacks. I understand a couple of those guys didn't necessarily perform as they hoped this year, but still, I bet they would appreciate Taj Brooks just saying, you know what? I came to Memphis just for the scenery. We're going to chill. All right. We're going to have a nice little weekend here. But other than that, I'm good. I've done enough. Let's just protect the NFL draft stock. Arkansas would certainly appreciate that. I don't know if that's going to be the case. What I do know is that this game is going to be the ultimate Leo DiCaprio meme. Point at the TV when you recognize someone. Just do it. Oh, Taylor Green. I know him. Fun player. I'm going to say Tech's defense, which was basura in the regular season, 124th in FBS and yards per game allowed. I'm going to say that they struggle to slow down Taylor Green's legs. And I'm opening up the possibility that Taj Brooks runs for 200 yards in this one. Would not rule that out. But let's just say Sam Pittman finds a way to stay undefeated in bowl games. That's right. Undefeated in bowl games for Sam Pittman. Hogs win a weird game. Every game that Taylor Green plays is weird. So 35-28, and Arkansas wins a game in which it has like 4 different lead changes.
Yeah, I am just, again, the report here, because it's not just injuries, but it's also transfers, it's also opt-outs, is so long that it has a footnote to it. And guys, I want to be so clear. This is, we have an expanded playoff. Everybody's playing in those games. There's like one guy who's not playing in those games, and everyone's like giving him crap, the Penn State backup quarterback.
We're going to get to him. He's a very popular topic of discussion in today's pod. We will be discussing him very shortly, Bo Pribula. Yeah.
And that's the thing is like, it's not like we're sitting here. It's not like it's last year. We're sitting here promoting this. This is fun. This is silly. This is goofy. Like putting. This is really what this game is about. Like to your point, it's like, yeah, we know we got Taylor Green. We know we got some random stuff, and it would be a disservice to act like everybody's cool. That being said, this does feel like pretty tailor-made to Taylor Green, where you go out there and say, look, son, you really can't mess this up. Whatever you do, just go out there and sling it. Just don't get hurt. Just make sure. I mean, the 8K video package, we're going to be the winners. We're all going to be the winners because there's going to be at least 2 to 3 shots of Taylor Green just getting hit a la, Jaden Daniels or Drew Brees that time he got hit by the Niners, his neck went sideways. We're going to see a nice 8K shot of Taylor Green just getting sandwiched and delivering a trebuchet. A la, I think it was the end of the Mizzou game. He was just getting smashed on every other play, and he was somehow setting his feet and just delivering 60-yard catapult shots downfield, and everyone was going, is someone going to catch this? I think that this is going to be a fun game to watch. I would like Arkansas's talent. I will say Texas Tech has been pretty sneaky lately. They've had that recruiting class that was 1 billion players a couple of years ago when their coach took over, and it looks like they're doing really well in the transfer portal too. Not that that matters for this game. I would just keep eyes on it. Doesn't, what I'm saying? Like, just keep eyes on Texas Tech because this might be a game that you end up not regretting a couple years down the road.
Tech's got a weird situation right now with its collective. It's shutting down in July. Yeah, and it's just restructuring things. That's become more popular in just the way that it's being phrased. A lot of teams are trying to do away with collectives because of the way that they're funneling money essentially to players, and it's just a restructuring of this. So there's a little bit of uncertainty surrounding that with Joey McGuire's program, but this is still an opportunity for Sam Pittman to, if you recall, with his contract, very incentive-based, winning bowl games, getting a winning season. I'd have to look this up. There's a good possibility that in a game in which we're talking about all these opt-outs and how random it's going to feel, in which Sam Pittman's got like $250,000 on the line, will Sam Pittman have the most on the line financially of anybody who could be betting on this game?
Imagine the shot. Sam Pittman, lots of money riding on this. You cut to Bobby Petrino screaming into his microphone. You cut to Taylor Green, not hearing a word of it. Sam Pittman sweating profusely. I can't wait for this game.
This is why you got to watch bowl games. This is why. Just another Friday night game. Hey, catch the second half of this one. Whatever. This game will be worth the price of admission. Okay, maybe not worth the price of admission, but worth the price of sitting at home and watching it for free. All right, Vegas Bowl. Super, super late start. 10:30 Eastern time. This one is starting, of course.
Okay.
I'll be honest, Will, I try and watch all these games live. This might be one where I have to just dial up the YouTube TV recording the next day or something, or get a recap a couple of days after the fact. I might not be live tweeting off of this one. Don't hate on me, A&M fans. But the Vegas Bowl has
someone
USC.
who had to watch USC in Las Vegas, don't recommend it.
Yeah, well.
You could just skip that one, actually.
Funny, because that's the over-under that we have for this game. By the way, A&M a 4-point favorite. The over-under is 2.5 USC-LSU flashbacks. Got to be at least, I would think. U.S. season bookended with trips to Vegas. Ironic, considering the roll of the dice of paying Lincoln Riley all that money, giving him the house with, 12 bathrooms in it.
You know what Wayne said? He'd drop a deuce all day.
Lil Wayne said that?
Got 10 bathrooms I could bleep all day.
That's right over my head. Right over my head. I'll be honest. When I saw Lil Wayne at the Heisman ceremony, I was thinking to myself, I don't know if I've heard anything Lil Wayne related that's new in the last 10 years.
I'll catch you up. More. Don't worry. I got the BuzzFeed. I got the RSS feed.
Okay. Don't know if Wayne's going to be at this one. Probably not. Maybe a halftime performance. A lot of random bowl game halftime performances I feel like we'll be seeing. But yeah, this is this is obviously not the place where Lincoln Riley got the launching point victory that we speculated he could have. That was the LSU game. To think that he's fighting just for a winning season after the way that his year started off is pretty baffling. Also baffling to think Miller Moss off to Louisville. So are 11 others. Say it again.
Miller Moss.
Was that a Coach O Miller Moss?
Yes. He's,
the Louisiana view is coming out big time, and I think it's just because USC's playing in this game.
Yeah, it's giving me flashbacks to your point. We're already going to hit the over-under.
Yeah. But yeah, he and the Branch brothers are in the portal. TBD. Well, I shouldn't say Miller Moss is in the portal. He's off to Louisville, but there's a dozen USC players that are in the portal. Woody Marks opted out of this one. A&M, on the other hand, not having a bunch of these opt-outs. 3 significant ones on the defensive line with having Stewart, Turner, Scorton, all those guys not playing in this one. They're off to the NFL. But big difference between this year and last year. Only 6 guys, I believe, to the portal that they've lost, and your starting quarterback is playing in this one. That is Marcel Reed, who played in the bowl game last year, albeit under different circumstances. Jalen Henderson had to start. He gets hurt in the bowl game last year at the Texas Bowl, and then Marcel Reed comes in and plays really, really well in that game against Oklahoma State. Doesn't get the win, but still kind of showed a little glimpse of the future. So he's playing in this one. Jade Mayava, the former UNLV quarterback who originally looked like he was committing to Georgia, then ends up at USC. He's playing in this one. He played pretty well down the stretch. Putting up 35 points against the Notre Dame defense is no joke. And I think that if he comes out and has a performance like Miller Moss in the bowl game last year against, ironically enough, Louisville, the team where he ended up, I wouldn't be surprised. I would expect a big day from Mayava. I think that he's going to be a lot better knowing that he doesn't have to worry about that A&M defensive front. And those guys are going to be playing, second string. It's mostly a second string defensive line that he's going to be looking at. So I could see USC kind of getting a big lead early, A&M clawing back just as Marcel Reed has done multiple times this year. South Carolina, Auburn, very similar. But Aggies just kind of struggled to put together complete games down the stretch. And I think this is another one of those matchups in which you're like, golly, defensively, this does not look like a Mike Elko defense yet. And I think they kind of struggle with the USC offense, especially USC offense with a little bit of extra time to prepare, even with some of those tough losses to the portal. So I'm going to take USC to pull off an upset. I'm going to say this is a 42-38 shootout. USC bookended wins in Vegas in 2024.
Yeah, as I'm 0 for 1 picking this team in Vegas, picking against this team in Vegas. But I do think that, there's a lot to like about A&M. And to your point about last year against Oklahoma State, this team feels like it's gone 180 degrees. I know I've been banging that drum, but when you overperform or when you perform above expectations as a first-year head coach, the way they have at A&M, I think that, with great power comes great responsibility. But that being said, what you want to see out of year one is a lot of the things that they've seen, right? A team that's bought in, a starting quarterback that's playing a bowl game. You look across the aisle at USC, Lincoln Riley's not a super popular guy here. He found a way to beat Brian Kelly and take the number 1 recruit out of Louisiana, which, hey, Billy had done that in year 1. We would have been building statues, but people are still not happy about that. You know what I'm saying? And so point being, the vibes for these two teams feel very different, where A&M kind of went for the ground and pound, no nonsense guy. USC, of course, Hollywood, bright lights. They go for Lincoln Riley. And you look at the end of the year and you have one team, in my opinion, in USC that's kind of beaten up. They're kind of, and it's about, do you want to tackle Marcel Reed? And I think at the end of the day, USC, the version of USC we saw against LSU, I think would have done well against this team. I think they were locked in. Baylor Alexander, that was 3 teams ago for him. He's now gotten different tattoos. I saw him on here. I don't know why he's considered an opt-out or whatever he is. But point being, just a very different version of the team that played well. Even the team that played well against Michigan and what we think about Michigan now. So all the good sample sizes for USC were just different teams. They were different points of the season. I think for A&M, there's a lot to like. There's a lot to believe in. In year one, the only guys you really have opting out are the Shamars, who have been here forever and they've done what they needed to do. Scorton, who was a little bit, as we knew, of a mercenary at the time, did what he needed to do. So I don't really think there's anything bad vibes or bad culture-wise going on at A&M. I think for bowl games, that matters a ton. I think that Lincoln Riley very much sees, where his job is at, and that every year he kind of has been under expectation. I think he's probably really focused on recruiting. Whereas for A&M, they're building. They're trying to prove, hey, we have money. We have a fun offense you can play in. Come see us. So, yeah, like I said, I just think tackling Marcel Reed is going to be rough. I got A&M actually winning by about 10 here.
Okay, so to that point, though, I think if I'm an A&M fan, I actually want to see somewhat limited design runs for Marcel Reed.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll admit, you could test the will of that USC defense and know that it's going to be difficult. But if I'm an A&M fan, I'm looking at this big picture. I want Marcel Reed to have a full offseason in the Colin Klein offense. I think that's really important for what A&M is trying to build moving forward. And I don't want any world in which he's exposing himself an unnecessary amount of times And I understand you've got some limited depth in the backfield with the injuries that they've suffered there. But getting Ruben Owens back late in the season, maybe you can lean a little bit more on him for a more traditional ground game. I want to see more reps with Marcel Reed in this passing attack, because that's what's going to take an A&M team that was decent and turn them into a better, more versatile team next year. And I would like to see a full bowl prep with that in mind of, hey, I know you got your legs. I know that we have this at our disposal. I want to see you get on the same page as these receivers. I want to see you run some of this tempo stuff in this offense, do it at a high level, process these reads at a really, really high level, knowing that that's going to be a big part of our offense moving forward. So I would almost rather them just be like, you know what, if we could just kind of keep him to like single-digit rushing attempts in this one and make sure that our guy is going to be healthy and kind of get the full arsenal of his game, I would almost support that game plan more, even if it means you're not going to – you could have some rough moments early on against USC.
Well, the beautiful thing is, I mean, we saw this second half of a certain game with Reed. You know, if it's there, he's going to take it. And so point being, you can design one or two reads and then to take off. And if you're a USC defense that's not, disciplined, how about this? It's not going to be design runs. I think you're totally right about that. But I think if there's an open field of green, Reed's going to take it. And then if you're USC, you got to stop it. And the guys are going to be open. So it's just like, he's just a good dude to have in a bowl game, because it takes so much discipline to take away what he naturally does well. Even if the coaching staff is telling him not to do it, if he sees green, he's going to take off. So yeah, but exactly to your point, man, like, and I need to start developing a terminology here, because there's a certain performance. We saw this out of, ironically, Miller Moss and Jackson Arnold, in previous seasons, where it's like, okay, you're in this bowl game. We're trying to see if you're the future. And weirdly enough, I would say Nussmeier had one of these last year against Wisconsin, where it's like, it's just pure hopium game. It's 300 yards. It's 4 touchdowns against like backups. And I think that that's exactly what you want at a Reed. You want to have a strong end of the season, let them see the ball go through the hoop, for lack of a better word, hit the open receivers. But if that's not there, I just don't think this USC defense is disciplined enough to stop him from just skedaddling around.
I think he's a notch above that in terms of like, they know he's the guy. They're trusting in him to be the guy. But you're right, and that you want to have this game to end the season where you feel like, all right, we don't feel like he regressed over the course of the season. We feel like he's actually making that real progress, and he's going to be a QB1 at the start of the season for the first time. Let's feel like this is an actual building block game. I agree. There's got to be some sort of a term for that. You got mossed? No, that's already taken.
Come on,
like that. All right, Music City Bowl, Iowa, number 19, Mizzou. Mizzou's a 3-point favorite. A lot of 3-point spreads. Vegas is saying, you guys figure it out.
Vegas is saying, enjoy your family time, bro.
Seriously. Bet on these games. Just bet a money line. It's easier to just do that. The over-under I have brought it up before, but 5 mentions of Bo Pribula. That is the new quarterback for Mizzou. No, he's not going to be playing in this game. We know that. Okay. Brady Cook is getting his send-off. It's not going to all of a sudden be, you're turning the ball over to the Penn State transfer. No. Brady Cook will be starting, barring some last-minute decision. Going to be starting without Luther Burden III, without Mookie Cooper, without Norfleet as tight end as well. TBD on your boy Weiss.
We'll play see. In quotations at this point. So we might see that boy Weiss 10 target game.
15 target game, at least. Let's see it. If you've been following the Pribula story, he left Penn State as the backup, even though he had legit packages in their offense with Drew Aller. And what they were trying to do with him was it's not Taysom Hill. It's not quite Taysom Hill, just because he's a different player. He's just physically, he's a different type of guy. But the intrigue was certainly there, and that's why he felt the need to hit the portal and to get an opportunity to start at a place like Mizzou, who we know has a guy in Sam Horn who's dealing with Tommy John surgery. So he's still, their quarterback of the future, so to speak, is not necessarily going to be locked in. And now you get a situation where all of a sudden you're like, okay, we get this guy coming in and he's going to get to work with Kirby Moore if he stays. And I'm excited for that. I'm really excited for that. With the stretch zone that Mizzou likes to run and how it can hold defenses like that, the play action off of those plays with Pribula is going to be a real weapon. And that's why I think there were a lot of teams really intrigued by that. I'm going to struggle to not compare him to to fellow Penn State quarterback who also wore number 9, a certain Trace McSorley. Okay, I don't want to repeat myself too much. That's the easiest comp to make. I think McSorley was better attacking downfield than Pribula has been so far, but physically a lot of similarities to what they like to do. Again, he is not built like Taysom Hill, so while it's tempting to say that's how he was used, it's not quite a fair thing. But
it's so fitting that there is like an unwilling Taysom Hill role, because that's kind of like where Levis was, right? Where it's like, no, we want you to be a mobile dual threat quarterback. I don't want to do that. You're going to do it, son. And it feels like we've had 2 of those now.
Yeah, Levis being asked to carry the ball like 25 times in that Nebraska game is still such a weird thing to look back on with the player that he ultimately became and the things that he was heralded for. Just not that at all. But I think they're going to talk about him in this one. Maybe open up an even bigger dialogue about the transfer portal, how weird it is that it's set up this way with him leaving for Mizzou. Maybe they'll also bring up the fact that he played in a September game against Iowa last year, and he really added something with his legs. But I hope we see Brady Cook do some things with his legs in this one. That element was really missed from Mizzou's offense this year with him kind of being banged up throughout the season. He's going to have to be that type of guy in a game like this where I already mentioned how limited they are with their pass catchers. So I think that's going to be a big part of the Mizzou offense. Iowa's not going to have Cade McNamara. They're not going to have star tailback Caleb Johnson in this one. Hawkeyes finished in the middle of the pack in scoring offense. How about that? Big improvement. The Prost Bryant Ferentz glow up that everybody was talking about. Yeah, that's right. It kind of happened. Massive, massive improvement. They still don't throw the football well. I mean, the only teams that they're beating in terms of passing yards per game, service academies. So not great in terms of modern offense, but I'm going to take the Mizzou defense to kind of shine a little bit against a one-dimensional Iowa offense. I think they get a defensive touchdown in this one as well. The over-under for this game is 40.5. That's it. 40.5. Let's go under. Mizzou, not quite as meaningful as the Ohio State win last year, but similar stylistically. Mizzou wins this one ugly, 17-7. Mizzou gets to 10 wins. Again, one of the weirdest 10-win seasons that we've seen in recent memory from an SEC team.
What a fitting bowl matchup.
Kind of, yeah. Kind of is.
It's like that's the last gatekeeper for the Hollow 10-win season is Iowa. And speaking of that, it's funny because as the backdrop of Iowa's turned around their offense, looking at their transfer portal here, they actually have 2 quarterbacks in the transfer portal. So, of course, I'm furiously looking up on like the Iowa SB Nation site who's playing quarterback. Gentleman named Brendan Sullivan, and that being
who's a Northwestern transfer. He's coming. He was banged up down the stretch, and he's returning for this one. Yeah.
Yep. And so, point being, like I'm sitting here going, this feels like kind of the you never know with Mizzou, but it feels pretty easy where it's the send off. Brady Cook was always going to be a campus legend, right? That was a thing that was like very well within his sights whenever he got there. We don't know if, there's the NFL future. We don't know if he's going to be a coach. We don't know where he's going to go from here. But in terms of his legacy at this school, I feel like he's at least in the conversation for the greatest quarterback of all time.
It's not Chase Daniel. Chase Daniel is still heads and shoulders. That's not. I don't want to go there. I don't want to do.
You're
Chase
right.
Daniel
I'm just
dirty.
saying, like in terms of winning the SEC games, beating Ohio State, which they did. Like I think that I'm not going to diminish his legacy. Is all I'm saying. So that being said, like
Blaine Gabbert too, part of that.
But I know, man. But those are like kind of more NFL guys. Like in terms of like how dead this program was when Brady Cook took the reins and where they're cruising out after a disappointing season where they could win 10 games.
I mean, come on. We got
we're not talking about
Drew
there. Lock compared to Brady Cook now. That's where I'll put my foot down because the thing was Drew Lock. Drew Lock could never win the big game. And Brady Cook at least competed against Georgia, but he won the big games. And I think he put them in this place where they were a lot more respectable in the SEC and it didn't feel like it felt like buildable. So all I'm saying there is that, this is the classic, one last ride. Guy comes in, plays well. So, and yeah, to your point, we hope that boy Weiss plays, just kind of for continuity there. So, yeah, as good as the Iowa offense has been, relatively speaking, I think this is a great opportunity for Mizzou to kind of just ride off into the sunset, win this one going away. We saw Tennessee kind of do that with a new quarterback last year. So against technically a better Iowa team. So the expectations are not that high. It's not that hard to do this against Iowa in a bowl game. And like I said, their offense is a little bit better, missing that continuity to a degree. So I got Mizzou winning by a couple scores.
Brady Cook wanted to be remembered as a winner. He'll be remembered as a winner. Really nice legacy. Much different legacy than what I thought he would earn when he started his career, even post year one as a starter. I'd still take Drew Lock over Brady Cook as a college quarterback.
You would take Drew Lock. Okay, again, the other guys, I'm not a Mizzou fan. I get it. Drew Lock had like 8 touchdowns week 1, and then just fell off a cliff when he got to the SEC.
That's not doing my guy. That's doing my guy a disservice. Here's what we're gonna do. This is gonna be this is the ultimate decider. I'm texting Adam Spencer right now.
Okay.
Drew Lock or Brady Cook. I never do this live. Or Brady Cook as a better Mizzou quarterback. Adam is the final. I will.
That's fair.
I will submit to Adam's ruling. Just better Mizzou quarterback, not related to the NFL or anything like that.
Oh yeah, I just want to give dude his flowers. You know what I'm saying? I think that he's a guy that it kind of started with a rash of jokes where it was like, what's the situation with the OC? What's the situation with the quarterback? Is this offense ever going to put it together? And again, like I said, we've talked about this year as it was disappointing, but for Mizzou, like these last couple of years have had really magical moments. And I think that, we got to watch a really special couple of players here at Mizzou for a couple of years. And so I think it's a nice little ending to it. Let them kind of do their thing right off and just to your point, move on to the next chapter. It's going very different from what we've been seeing.
Alternatively, this could be absolutely no fun whatsoever to play against an Iowa defense that's still pretty good, pretty darn good.
Yeah.
This could end up being
that's the other thing.
Just one of those games where Mizzou fans are wishing, couldn't we have ended with the snow game against Arkansas? Wouldn't that have been a funner note? Yeah, here we go, making up words. Wouldn't that have been a more fun note to end the season on? Wouldn't that have been nicer for Brady Cook? There's that possibility as well, but I'll take Mizzou to win this one. All right, the Lion Quest Bowl. Number 11, Alabama.
Seeing these two logos is so funny. I'm sorry.
Not the first time, not the last, Will.
Right.
Third time playing a bowl game in the last 6 seasons. Number 11, Alabama, 12.5 point favorites against Michigan. The over-under is 2.5 shots of Justice Haynes. The former Alabama running back transferred to Michigan. If you're Justice Haynes, do you go to this game?
Where else are you going to be? I mean, you kind of have to. All your friends are there.
All your friends are there. Your past friends, your future friends. Maybe you do. Maybe you don't like awkward conversations. I don't know. I don't know how this goes. I couldn't put myself in that spot. Would be weird for his Bama teammates to see him on the sideline just decked out in Michigan gear. It doesn't really happen very often with teams that are playing each other in bowl games or something like that. It's different if we're talking about them facing off a year later or something like that. And it's a guy's facing his former team. I always think that actually matters with guys who hit the portal. They want to face their former team, and that's a nice little bonus. But if we're just seeing Justice Haynes decked out in Michigan gear on the sideline, that's going to be a fun little conversation piece in this one. As we know, if you're repping Michigan, you need at least 2 pieces of Michigan apparel at all times. True story, Will. I waited to this pod to tell you this. Last week, I'm picking Claire up from daycare. One of the other parents is wearing a Michigan shirt.
Of course.
I look at him, and I'm kind of stunned. I'm like, dude's not wearing a Michigan hat. He's not wearing a Michigan jacket. He's not wearing a Michigan set of joggers or something like that. So I'm scanning this guy. I look down. Socks with sandals. The socks are Michigan socks. Of course they were.
Dread it, run from it, it arrives all the same. The second Michigan logo is always there.
It is always there. You just have to look for it. And if it's not there, it's the only situation in which you are legally allowed to go up to another human being and you're allowed to say, I'm assuming you're wearing Michigan underwear right now. Correct? Don't do that.
He couldn't turn down all the free gear. He had all the logos. Justice Hayes was like, "Look, I gotta get scoped up, man. I gotta get ready. I'm used to that Bama white. Give me the alternate logos. Let's go."
Like, how did you know that? Yes, I got ReliaQuest Michigan Alabama underwear on. They're briefs, but man, I guess they're showing. Alabama fans who traveled to Tampa for this one, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. You will know. Okay, you'll think back to this, listening to this. 2 pieces of Michigan gear minimum, even when they're 7-5. As for Bama at 10-3, there are stakes, even though there are some relatively significant absences. No Justice Haynes. Malachi Moore is hurt. Jaheim Oates, he transferred to Colorado. And then Devontae Smith, the other one, he hit the portal as well. So Bama, a secondary that was already very much up and down this year. It could be up and down. Fortunately, not facing exactly a prolific Michigan passing offense. What's on the line for Bama, though? That's a question that's always worth asking when Bama's not playing for a national championship. Trying to avoid a 4-loss season for the first time since year one of the Saban era. That's what's on the line. You think Kalen DeBoer would like to do that? I think he'd like to do that. That's likely. Not yeah, I wouldn't want to be associated with that. Oh, worst Bama season in 17 years. Jalen Milroe, Tyler Booker, those guys are expected to play in this one. I think this ends up being a similar vibe to when they did make the playoff 2 years ago. Saban argued that they would have been favored over TCU and they should have made the playoff. Everybody else realized that Bama had or their best wins were against teams that had at least 4 losses, and it didn't really make a whole lot of sense. Whatever, they took out all their anger on Kansas State, Big 12 champ Kansas State, and I think they do a really similar thing in this one against Michigan. Maybe I'm just thinking too much about 5 years ago when I watched these teams play in the Citrus Bowl, and we predicted the opening play that it was going to be single high safety. Don Brown was going to try and defend. I think it was Jerry Jeudy who had like a long 65-yard catch in the very first play from scrimmage. And I think we see a similar Bama team show up in this one. Michigan's going to be without its 5 best players, at least. Will Johnson, Mason Graham, Josiah Stewart, Colson Loveland, the stud tight end, and then Donovan Edwards, cover man on College Football 25, who did not end up having that season that many expected him to. Mullings ended up being their lead tailback. I'm not even sure if he's going to be playing in this one, so maybe you don't say Edwards is one of their 5 best players. Whatever. Ohio State was their Super Bowl.
Right.
Their season ended when they walked off the field and planted the flag against Ohio State. Their season was done, as far as I'm concerned. I don't expect them to get up for this one. I think the Tide rolled 35-14. Everybody will be talking about Jalen Milroe getting his Michigan revenge.
The thing about Jalen Milroe is so sweet. Him saying he's going to play in this game, look, Alabama fans, you still have a chance to get him to stay because the boys around his boys. The boy fan, oh, we love you, Jalen Milroe. You guys are mean to him online. That's why he's leaving. He's the sweetest college football player I've ever seen. I feel like he's that guy who might just accidentally show up to practice one Monday and be like, I didn't want to leave, guys. Nobody told me I should go yet. And so point being, like, I'm sure he's going to have the biggest smile. I'm sure he is going to be having fun with his boys. Yeah, I mean, Ryan Williams is available because he's like missing prom. Like this guy's just too young to ever opt out of a bowl game. And
Ryan Williams was supposed to be getting his driver's license in the middle of this game, but he decided that he's actually going to be playing in a bowl game.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, I think that from Michigan's standpoint, to your point, they're kind of on to the next season. And that being said, ReliQuest Bowl, as you said in Tampa, I'm gonna ask you 2 guys. You think they'll be there? Number 1, Tom Brady.
Still has his house. Don't know what his obligations are for Fox. I'm going to say no. Okay. I'm going to say no. He's going to be traveling for Fox, if I had to guess.
So, because we already talked about Justice Hayes, you think Bryce Underwood makes an appearance?
Yes. Bryce Underwood makes an appearance at this one. Yeah. I think he's there. Probably have some sort of obligation in which he could be in Tampa, drop of a hat.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that, they're in kind of an interesting place because I'm not certain they will be much better next year, Michigan. Just they haven't done a ton in the portal. To your point, they've lost a lot of guys that were kind of like either those who will stay, upperclassmen going to the draft. So next year is going to be really interesting for this Michigan team. I don't doubt that they'll get, some talent in kind of the following year. Maybe they'll hit the spring portal really hard, but it's just a really interesting team to keep an eye on because obviously they're getting that quarterback, but you kind of look around even at this team and it's like, where are these like weapons? Who's going to be playing? So I think that this is unfortunately kind of a big game for Michigan because if they get blown off the field, I think that, all that positivity from Ohio State and Bryce Underwood can start to like wane when you look at the future of the team going into next year. So I think they'll come to play, but Alabama just always finds a way to win these games. They always just find a way. It's just every recruiting class, Alabama has to have like a picture over the corpse of their enemies, whatever it's going to happen to be. You got a rematch of like kind of a team that's not full strength. And it's hard for me to imagine even Kalen DeBoer not having the final moment of like, all right, Milroe, you beat Michigan, off to the NFL. Don't show up for work on Monday, buddy.
Well, you think Michigan is going to lose juice if they lose this game after you think let me rephrase that. You think the Michigan good vibes after Ohio State can potentially disappear with losing to Alabama? Because I do not think that Michigan fans, they could be They could be 1-11 next year, and they will still be riding high off of the 2024 victory against Ohio State.
Oh, I'm talking about if you get joyless murderballed, Kane Womack turnover, beaten to pulp, you lose by 40, and it's like, hold on. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because I don't think they're all totally sold on Moore. I still think that guy is still proving that, like, to the fan base, weirdly, that he is, like, a serious coach. So, unfortunately, I think that they have to at least look kind of respectable in this game because, like I said, we're looking forward to next year, and I think they have a lot to figure out. And so, but to that point, I don't think Alabama's going to let them figure it out. And that's what's so funny is I don't think this game really matters to Alabama. And I think, like, arc-wise, it kind of should for Michigan. And I think Alabama's just going to smoke them because that's just what they do in these situations.
Well, we have a ruling from Adam.
What did he say? Adam
says, this is in answering our Drew Lock versus Brady Cook question. Adam says, that's tough. ... I love me some Drew Lock, and I'll say he's the more talented quarterback. But Brady Cook played in more big games and had more big wins. He had the better Mizzou career. All right.
Told you. And this is the number one Drew Lock stand. This is the guy saying,
Okay. I default to Adam's ruling. I will acknowledge Brady Cook is a better quarterback. Chase Daniel had big time wins. I would still put Chase Daniel ahead of Brady Cook. We don't need to have the Blaine Gabbert discussion for now, but as whenever I am asked, henceforth, I will say Brady Cook greater than Zion Drew Lock.
They had some great quarterbacks. Dude. Alabama fans are going, where have these guys been for us in the mid-2000s?
Seriously.
These guys, we'd never lose. Anyway.
Yeah. Citrus Bowl. Number 15, South Carolina, 9.5-point favorites against number 20, Illinois. The over-under I have is 4 references to why South Carolina should have been in the playoff. It's coming. That's going to be discussed ad nauseum, especially if it's a blowout. I'm bummed that I won't be there. It just didn't line up with our work schedules here at home. Lauren's got a lot going on during the day with work, so I'm going to be doing solo dad duty in the afternoon while watching these games. So we'll be try to be as attentive as possible. But if I'm not live tweeting this one, y'all know why. Claire will watch her future long snapping coach Shane Beamer in this one.
Of course,
could get some significant line movement if we get official word on a bunch of South Carolina's defensive players potentially opting out of the bowl game. I think Kyle Kennard, Beamer said that he's going to be opting out of this one. There's a lot of those other guys that, even worry, Sanders, Tonka Hemingway, see what these guys are doing in this one. And then if you're going to be gambling, probably keep that in mind. But quietly a fun quarterback matchup. About the Lenore Sellers part, but Luke Altmaier has turned into a nice player for Illinois. He's coming back next year, too. One of those guys that, man, by the time he finishes his career, he will be mid-20s. At least it seems like it. Former Ole Miss quarterback. He has a chance to do what his former team did. That is, be on the right side of a win against South Carolina. But I don't think he will. I envision South Carolina trying to do everything it can to show the world, guys, we would have been a nightmare if you had just let us into the college football playoff. That is probably going to be, I think, let me rephrase that. I think South Carolina has a real chance to flex its offensive muscles in this one in a way that it didn't even do really outside of a handful of few plays against Clemson. Okay. Because we forget, that wasn't necessarily a game in which Lenore Sellers dominated from start to finish. He did brilliant things on some very important plays in that one, but just start to finish, locked in 45-point effort or something like that. It was not. I think this has a different type of feel for the South Carolina offense because it's not quite a prototypical vintage Brent Bielema defense. I think we see Illinois struggle defensively. They got hit by 31 against Rutgers. Northwestern hit them for 28. I think South Carolina hits them for 42, Will. I think South Carolina wins 42-24. 10-win season for Beamer. It would be their first 10-win season since 2013. That year also finished with a bowl victory against a Big Ten team in Orlando. Just missed. It was Wisconsin. Just missed by 1 year, it being Bielema. If South Carolina wins this game, which I believe it will, they will have a really good case to be a top 10 team in the final AP poll. Those things matter. Let's play a quick game because I wanted to go through and see how crazy that is because they're 14th right now in the AP poll. So this is only if South Carolina wins. Obviously, if they lose this game, they're not going to be in the top 10 of the AP poll. Tell me if they'll be ranked ahead of the following teams.
Okay.
11-2 Indiana. Yes.
Yeah, they will.
11-3 SMU.
Yep.
I think they will. 10-4 Clemson. I only asked that because Clemson was somehow ranked ahead of South Carolina in the final AP poll.
That's the easiest one. There's a head-to-head better record.
What?
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. So I say yes on that one. Here's where it gets interesting. 10-3 Tennessee. If they're both 10-3, the fact that Tennessee got blown out so badly, I say yes. There's at least a chance of that. And yes, they're 7 spots apart or something like that, or 6 spots apart. But moving up 3 spots and Tennessee falling 4 or something like that. That's all that's what it would take for something like that to happen. So
I think they're right there. Yeah.
Yeah. A potential 10-4 Bama team. Bama would have to lose to Michigan in order for that to be on the table. I say yes, even though Bama
they
would
lose
have
to
the
Michigan.
head-to-head.
That's a different team. Yeah, for sure.
A potential 11-3 Arizona State team who loses to Texas in the Peach Bowl.
If they get smoked by Texas, maybe.
Yeah. Yes. I think that's the question of what does that game look like? Does it feel like Tennessee against Ohio State, or does it feel like they went down to the wire? If they go down to the wire against Texas, I think that would be really tough. A potential 12-2 Boise State team if Boise State loses to Penn State.
I think that's about where it stops.
I think only if it's a blowout. Only if it's a blowout would AP voters look up and realize, you know what? Boise State's best win was UNLV, and South Carolina finished the season with 7 wins. And how many of them were in the 4 or 5 of them in the AP top 25 at the time of the matchup? The teams that I can say with certainty will be ranked ahead of a potential 10-3 South Carolina team: Oregon, Georgia, Notre Dame, Texas, Ohio State, Penn State. That's it. We did that exercise because that's really those are the only teams that you would definitively be able to say they absolutely had a better year than South Carolina. Now, I'm not saying that like all those situations that we talk about of this team would have to lose in order for South Carolina to jump past them. I realize that's also, a hypothetical, but that would mean a lot, I think. What if South Carolina finishes this year 8th in the country and finishes higher than they were picked to finish in the SEC, which they were picked to finish, 12th in the SEC?
Yeah.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, I think that, this is another style of bowl win that I thought would kind of go out of style. But as we're seeing this year, there's still an opportunity for, kind of the how do you like me now? We should have been left in the playoff. We're angry. And again, this is another just sneaky bowl matchup that I love. Our boy Bert, we get to see him again. Our boy Altmaier, to your point, transfer, who was with, Ole Miss for a second. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a fun one. I think South Carolina's talent is one thing that jumped off the page to us that we didn't exactly see. There was some scheme to it, obviously, but I think how well they stacked up to the great teams is what, they belonged, against LSU, Alabama, not against Ole Miss, but against Clemson, So, point being, I think that a team that's motivated, like this against Illinois, I think they could show it really well. And to your point, kind of do a like what Kirby did last year against FSU. That's the exact style of game that I thought was going out of vogue. Now we have 3 lost teams thinking they got left out. We could get some really tough, matchups going forward. But I don't think Bert's ever been that. I don't think Bert's going to roll over. He's the type of guy that will take it seriously, back in the Sunshine State. But yeah, I do think South Carolina is going to win this one pretty comfortably.
I was there 2 years ago when Mississippi State played against Illinois in the ReliQuest Bowl because it was the first game post-Leach. And so I made that trip down to Tampa for that one, and Bert was there. Bert definitely valued the significance of that game and was pretty frustrated that his team was on the wrong end of that, a game in which Mississippi State kind of came back late, a very, very low-scoring game. I can't remember the final of that one. It was like 14-10 or something. And Bert was pretty upset that he wasn't winning his style of football game. I do think for South Carolina, the only thing that could prevent them from getting to that high scoring, good vibes on offense type of day is the fact that Dowell Loggins off to App State. You have your future OC though, Mike Shula, who's been an analyst for your team.
Shula, is he calling plays in this one? I don't see why he wouldn't.
I assume he's calling plays in this one, barring Beamer's been pretty close to the vest with a lot of their personnel stuff leading up to this one, but I assume that's going to be the case. I should have looked that up just to make sure, but
it doesn't make sense to announce it, like it doesn't make sense to tell everybody, but it also makes sense to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, we're not going to tell everybody who's calling the plays, but we have the guy in the building, so it would probably help us if he did,
He's an analyst. He should be running the same offense anyways, pretty much. It's not like he's all of a sudden going to implement an entirely new offense ahead of a bowl game or something like that. So I would expect the continuity there. So still a very good chance that Lenora Sellers looks like the guy that we saw in the latter half of the season. All right, Texas Bowl. I know you just couldn't wait to talk about this. Will was just texting me like, hey, when are we going to talk about the Texas Bowl? I'm like, Will, we're recording a podcast right now. Just keep your excitement at a minimum, all right? Like we'll get there, I promise. Baylor's 1.5-point favorite against LSU. The over-under. 4 mentions of Dave Aranda facing his former team. Fun little wrinkle, this one. I always got the vibe, and correct me if I'm wrong here, and maybe I'm just reading too much into the relationship he had with Ed Ogeron and not so much the relationship that he had with LSU. I always got the vibe that Aranda didn't leave LSU shedding tears. No.
He was I hate to say the smartest kid in the room. I have a lot of respect for Dave Aranda. He was a defensive schematic genius who had a quote-unquote defensive head coach that probably just ran cover 3 when it was up to him. And I think that there was a little bit of that Coach O thinking he was the guy behind it, and Dave Aranda being like, I put up all this scaffolding.
Yeah. So, that's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. He's not a shedding tears guy. Pretty stoic individual who also, if he were walking down the street, you would need at least a 10-year radius to guess his age of just how old is that guy? I think he's 48, if I'm not mistaken. But Dave Aranda, just for whatever reason, doesn't age. This is an interesting opportunity for him. Obviously, he spent the last 5 years at Baylor and coming off of being a really well-respected assistant at LSU at the time, highest paid assistant in all of college football. And when he replaces Matt Rule at Baylor, he has that historic year 2. And I remember the conversation we had after the Ole Miss win of, wow, is Dave Aranda about to be one of the 10 best coaches in college football? And the 2 years that he has after that, just not exactly living up to some high expectations. And then this year, he's looking like dead man walking middle of the season. They start off 2-4, won 6 straight, turned it around, 8-4 team, 6 straight wins against Big 12 competition. They hit 37 points in 5 of 6 games down the stretch. A huge part of that, Sawyer Robertson, the Mississippi State, Mike Leach era transfer, has become a guy for that Baylor offense. And, that's just not necessarily the identity that we come to expect with a Dave Aranda coach team, but they've been winning a lot of these big time shootouts. And, this is just I think this is just one of those cases where you need to look at how a team is playing down the stretch. And it's a big reason, I think, why Baylor is favored in this game against LSU, who has Garrett Nussmeier. And if you had just said, oh, Garrett Nussmeier is playing in this one, you'd think that LSU has a really favorable chance to win a bowl game. But outside of Nuss, LSU could be stronger. They could have more guys playing in this one. Something just about the Texas Bowl and LSU having an extremely limited roster. The irony is that when we talk about Brian Kelly taking over an LSU team that had 39 scholarship players in a bowl game, it was playing in the Texas Bowl, the last game of the Ed Ogeron era, even though he wasn't coaching in that one. And the Texas Bowl was kind of seen as the end of this era. And now here Brian Kelly is at the end of year 3, still no playoff berth, a slew of guys lost to the portal and opt-outs. The good news for LSU is that they have been extremely active in the portal already and have made some big-time acquisitions. I already talked about Nick Anderson, Bauer Sharp, and some of the moves that they've made there make you feel like this is a different vibe than it was post-2021, and that's the good news for LSU. The bad news is that those guys aren't playing in this football game.
Let me actually take a step back really quick because I wanted to share this earlier when you were talking about Dave Aranda. I'm going to give you a fun fact before I get to this. So Dave Aranda actually hired LSU's equipment manager, and I don't know if you caught it on this.
When did he do that?
Oh, he's been there from day one.
Yeah.
And not the main equipment manager, but a member of the staff, right? And I don't know if you know this, but one of the things that LSU fans freak out about is their jersey combinations. LSU fans love the white jerseys. And Brian Kelly played in gold jerseys this year, played in purple jerseys. One of the things when the season was kind of not going great was people like Brian Kelly's ruined our traditions. Da, da, da. Well, Baylor is making LSU wear purple for this game.
They wore purple in the bowl game last year and it worked out.
No, that's true. But remember, Baylor could pick it. And so it's a super tier point about Dave Aranda. It's a super funny little wrinkle there because they're the ones choosing the jerseys. They know how much LSU fans hate wearing purple. And so they're just hoping Brian Kelly is looking red in the purple. That being said, it's hard for me to worry about the roster here because I look at the opt-outs and I see, oh my gosh, Will Campbell, I'm going to miss him. I see Emory Jones, I'm going to miss him. Mason Taylor, I'm going to miss him. I see Kyron Lacey.
Yeah.
I look up at the transfers. I see Sage Ryan. Oh my God, he's playing for Ole Miss next year.
I know
he's going to start for Ole Miss next year. I'm going, oh my gosh, I get to see Tiny, my boy Tiny, Aaron Anderson. He's going to have a great game. I think that overall, this is not a game that it's going to matter a ton for Dave Aranda. It's going to matter to get a win against LSU. But I think for Brian Kelly, his questions was, are you going to wear the right uniforms? No, I'm just kidding. His questions were about the transfer portal, upgrading the talent. As we see Dominic Williams opting out of the Oklahoma game, we're sitting here going, okay, what's next year look like? So I think even if this team gets smoked, I'm not going to feel too bad about it. But to your point, you got Nussmeier. I mean, how bad could you feel? He's a guy that they've proven can give him the ball 50 times, and that's what we'd like to do.
I'm going with Dave Aranda in the revenge game. And
okay.
Is it a revenge game? Is it? You could make it up in your mind to be a revenge game. Maybe you can tell yourself that you were wronged at certain points. I don't know how much. That's a separate conversation that we don't need to necessarily go down that road of like credit given the relationship with O and Aranda. That doesn't really matter in this game if you're thinking about it from his perspective. It'd be one thing if Ed Orgeron's still on that sideline. He's not. But the uniform is the aforementioned uniform. It's still there. Mm-hmm. I'm going Baylor to win a shootout. 38-28. Nuss plays well, but can't quite do enough. It's just one of those games where LSU's defense, which will have weeks in this one, I think. Sure. Zy Alexander playing in this one is expected to play in this one. So you're going to have some pieces, but I don't know that you're going to have enough to kind of shut down what Baylor's built, which is, God, that's a weird thing to say out loud. It'd be a nice time for Blake Baker to move past some of that doubt. And I'm not saying that Blake Baker is one and done at LSU at all. Okay, I don't think his job is in jeopardy. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking to myself, Brian Kelly gutted his entire defensive staff post-bowl game last year.
Mm-hmm.
I'd better just make sure this isn't a total disaster. And this isn't a game in which our defense just plays Ole defense and lets up 48 points or something like that. That'd be a tough look.
Well, yeah, to your point, which is a great point. I mean, if this were last year and it were Matt House, I would be crying crocodile tears going, Dave Aranda, you sure you're happy? Because I love Dave Aranda as a schematic guy. But to your point, I think it's going to be an interesting matchup because Blake Baker is a little bit more of a character. He's a little bit more of a recruiter. He's a little bit more that aggressive. Louisiana got the sunglasses on. He's a little bit more of a brand. Whereas Dave Aranda has, we've said, the thing was never the intelligence. The thing was never the scheme. It was the ability to relate to people and recruit and do all that stuff. So it's going to be really cool to see those two guys on opposite sidelines. See Dave Aranda, who, I mean, honestly, a matchup too with Brian Kelly, who is an offensive head coach. Joe Sloan, younger guy, you know what I'm saying? And kind of on that side of the ball, seeing kind of like the granddad and Brian Kelly being like, all right, don't play around with Dave Aranda. Like they keep gap control. They are well-disciplined defense. And one thing that's not being talked about too is I just thought about Corey Raymond. They coach together. And so, they'll get a big tap before the game. So, yeah, I don't think, to your point, I think that Coach O rubbed a lot of people the wrong way and how inexplicable he burned all that goodwill. I think that Aranda, might have separate issues with Brian Kelly. Not going to tell you Brian Kelly's a likable guy. He might have something from 2015 about Brian Kelly from that bowl game. I don't know. Or the one from the Hail Mary,
Like Dave Aranda, yeah. What do we have? The LSU Wisconsin thing. So, oh no, that was that. Never mind. I
was talking about the bowl game in 2017 where Kelly wanted like a Hail Mary. He might have said something to Aranda after that. They might have some other beef, but whatever it would be, I think that Aranda's over it when it comes to LSU. Now the equipment stuff, I like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm a little petty. I like that, but I think it's gonna be cool to watch. A guy that I've liked a lot win a lot of football games for LSU on the defensive side.
Yeah, LSU trying to finish in the top 25, trying to avoid a season outside of the top 25. Would have to win this game to be able to get back in there. And then would still end up with a 9-4 season. That's on the table for LSU.
How about this Greg Penn update? Still undecided, semicolon. Been playing with a broken rib. That's culture right there.
That's impressive. Hard to do. I've never tried. I've heard stories of people who have. Tony Romo famously played with a broken rib that one time.
I wanted an MMA fight with a broken rib.
Really?
Yep.
So add you to the list. Toughest guys I know.
That was one day. I was out of my head for one day. I cracked it in training. I didn't want to reschedule the fight.
We've got a lot of ribs. People forget that. A lot of ribs. You can spare one. You know? See what I did there? All right. Bad dad jokes. Let's move on. Gator Bowl. Duke. Number 14, Ole Miss. Ole Miss, 14.5-point favorite. The over-under is two screenshots of Lane Kiffin tweets during playoff games. Have to show it. Have to discuss it. I fully expect they'll discuss it when Ole Miss is up by $1 billion in this one. That's right. I think Ole Miss wins this game by roughly $1 billion, even though we are both Manny Diaz appreciators. But the only situation I can...
2 years in a row.
2 years in a row.
Lane Kiffin, Manny Diaz. I guess he had opted out by that point.
I think he had left the Penn State defense.
He left the Penn State. You're right about that. Yep.
So now he gets to be able to
finally
face him.
He gets his revenge.
Yeah, exactly. The bowl game that never was.
I love college football now. It's like, well, this guy was at Miami. Is it Duke? And it's like, how could these guys like each other? Anyway.
I hate looking that stuff up, too, of like, this coach, did he end up coaching in this bowl game? Or this coordinator, did he stay on board? Because everyone, like, you run into situations where you have to be reminded, oh, yeah, Dan Lanning stayed with Georgia, even though he had already had the Oregon job and already moved on. And, like, there are just things like that always need to be remembered when it comes to talking about assistants in bowl games. But, yeah, I think Lane Kiffin has one giant, let's not call it a middle finger, let's call it a flex. Let's say he has that to close the season, and he continues his belief that Ole Miss deserved to make the playoff, even though it had 3 losses to teams that aren't currently ranked. Somehow Lane will convince himself that beating Duke by 1 billion points will show that message. As in a Duke team that won't have Malik Murphy after he transferred to Oregon State, and it'll instead have a guy with, like, I think 1 career pass attempts. That's right. 1 career pass attempts. Who's going to be playing against this Ole Miss defensive line, which is expected to be intact for this one. Call me crazy. I think that favors the Ole Miss defensive line. I think the Ole Miss defense outscores the Duke offense. A defensive touchdown and a safety. We'll go there. That gives us the funky final score of 44-7. Jackson Dart accepts the Gator Bowl MVP trophy. He blasts the selection committee. Lane nods in approval, comes up with something witty after the fact, just to troll the selection committee. It's going to be that meme
with the podium where the guy's flipping everybody off and he kisses the girl and he gets the bronze medal.
That's it.
Jackson Dart's going to kiss a cheerleader.
I know we've been very meme heavy on this show today. That's the most appropriate use of that I've ever seen. Is Ole Miss winning this game against Duke and being like, "See, you guys should have let us in." This shouldn't be close. If Ole Miss is going to be as close to full strength as we believe it will be, this is the type of game in which you should win by so many points against a backup quarterback. I would think he's going to be overwhelmed as long as Ole Miss all of a sudden isn't like, you know what? We're just going to have our starters play for the first half of this one, and maybe it stays relatively close. I don't think that ends up being the case. Ole Miss should win by so many points.
Yeah, I think there's not a ton of analysis there. I think this is the type of game that Lane Kiffin does really well at. Yeah.
You're becoming very, very right with that take, in my opinion. Although the Georgia game will be there. It'll be there moving forward.
He did beat Georgia. Hand up. Like that was probably the biggest win of his career. That was a really big deal. I'm not discounting that.
As we come up with what our punishment will be for the person who loses our playoff bracket challenge, and we come up with different people that can be apologized to for the other person. Lane crossed my mind, but the timing of it just won't line up. The Ole Miss could win this game by 1 billion points, and I don't really feel like it'd be fair for you to apologize to Lane.
Right.
Yeah. They would have had to have made the playoff, won a game or two, something like that, made the Final Four. Then all of a sudden we can have that conversation. Lane will not be the person that I make you apologize to when I win this.
You got to get creative because I've already apologized to Billy. I've had times where I've been nice. Like, you got to pick somebody that would make me grit my teeth. I know you could do it.
I know. We might go deep. We might go deep in the Rolodex.
Yeah.
We'll see. All right, let's kick it to Quinn Ewers. Great interview with the Texas quarterback. Talked about his health coming off the Clemson game, playing for Sark. Talked about, kind of some of the all the thoughts about Arch and what it's been like to kind of, see him kind of grow as a person as well. So here's Quinn Ewers. Now excited to be joined by a very special guest. It is Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers. Quinn, tons to get to with you, but let's first start with what you're doing with Dick's Sporting Goods. You're competing against a bunch of Texas royalty in-store decorating contests, Simone Biles in Houston, Chris Paul in San Antonio, Dak Prescott in Dallas, and then obviously you in Austin with a little help from your buddy Matthew McConaughey. Tell us what you're doing and how our listeners can get involved.
Yeah, I mean, first off, it's just super cool to be able to get to do stuff like this with companies like Dick's, and just super excited for our partnership. And then the competitive aspect is also pretty cool to be able to compete against, other cities and whatnot. But what we're doing is all four of us decorated a store in our own town that we play our particular sport in. And obviously Simone Biles is just out of Houston, so she is doing Houston. And the winner ultimately will get a $100,000 Sports Matter grant for their own community. But right now it's looking like we all did a really good job, so everybody's going to get the $100,000 Sport Matter grant. So it's definitely really cool to be a part of something like this.
It's kind of not really fair that you had McConaughey on your side. I don't feel like anybody else had an ace in the hole like that. So like an asterisk if you end up winning this.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was definitely nice to have him a part of the Austin side for sure, and just to be able to get to work with him. I mean, he's an icon in Austin for sure, not just Austin, but across the United States. But it is definitely cool to get to work with him.
Yeah, I mean, Dabo himself, when he saw that you guys are, Clemson, Texas, he saw the matchup. He's like, oh my God, I'm going to get to meet Matthew McConaughey. Like that's nationally known. Let's talk about coming away from that. We're talking roughly 24 hours after you guys beat Clemson in the first round of the college football playoff. How's the ankle?
And I'm feeling good. It's been about a month now since it happened, so it's starting to hit the incline and feel a whole lot better.
Was that 3 weeks really beneficial to be able to, or I guess 2 weeks for you because you guys played in the SEC championship? But did you feel the difference in that? I know that you talked to Laura Rutledge about still having that the brace on your tucked under the sock, but like, was that significant for you, or was that like, hey, I'm either going to be able to play on it or not?
Yeah, I mean, I knew that. I mean, it's football at the end of the day. You're going to have to battle through some pain. But yeah, I knew there was going to be some issues with it, but I wasn't going to miss anything for sure.
You got to experience a home playoff game. You've played in a ton of atmospheres. How was that first time experience? Because a lot of people are wondering, this like new era of college football with having these first round home playoff games. There were people talking about, there's logistical things that are happening, but how was that for you? And would you support continuing to have these first round playoff games on college campuses?
I loved it. I mean, obviously it's a little different whenever you're talking to somebody who actually had the home game, but it was definitely an amazing environment, and I'm glad we got one more at home. I thought the one against Kentucky was going to be the last one, so to get another one back at home was really fun for sure.
In a weird way, you've got really good experience to weigh in on a question like this. You spent a year in the Big Ten, you spent 2 years in the Big 12, you spent this past year in the SEC, and you just faced the ACC champ. Are all conferences created equal, or like from your perspective now, is there a clear difference?
Yeah, I mean, I just think the consistency in the SEC is just not comparable to really any other conference. I'm not saying there's not good teams in other conferences, but just the amount of good and great teams there are in the SEC. Like, if you don't show up in the SEC, it doesn't matter who you're playing, you're going to get your butt whooped. And that could be a little different in different conferences. Like, you don't show up, play your best, but you still come out with a win. And obviously you do that in the SEC if you play good complementary football at the end of the day. But I mean, there's good teams all over the place. But I just think the consistency in the SEC is better than most conferences.
It's easy to forget that, when you left Ohio State, you went to a program that was coming off of a 5-7 season. And, it's a credit to you guys and what you've built that you've been able to make that a really distant memory in Texas's history here in year one with Sark. But were you transferring only for a situation where you could play at Texas with Sark, or was there any other opportunity that would have made sense for you?
There's multiple reasons that kind of went to transferring. I mean, number one, I just wanted to be closer to all my resources. I feel like all my resources were back in Texas, and just being away from that wasn't very beneficial for me. And being closer to my family. I just love being around my family. I didn't really get that at Ohio State. And growing up here, it was hard leaving, and it was even harder being away from Texas. I mean, it's just I grew up wanting to play here, and it just took me a minute to really realize that.
Is there a moment you've had with Sark that sort of explains his brilliance as an offensive mind? Because we can all sit here at home and look, and even if we watch a lot of football, we go, wow, that seemed like it was schemed up really well. But is there a moment that you've had with him where you're just like, this guy is a wizard and I have an advantage knowing that he's in my ear every single time I step on the field?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's just like every week there's just something new going on, a new play that he puts in, and he'll like say it on Monday. He's like, "This is gonna score." Like, he's already played the game out in his head, and it's just so cool to be a part and get coached by him and Coach Milwee, and just all the work that we put in together. I'm just super super thankful for the amount of time that they've put in me. It's been a lot of fun the past 3 years for sure.
What's the play that stands out this year of like, wow, we saw it at work. We saw this look, this little wrinkle that just was, it was one of those plays where he said on Monday, this is going to score. And then you draw it up and it works flawlessly. Like what's kind of the one, cause I'm sure you've had plenty of those this year, but maybe what's the one that stands out?
I think the one that stands out to me, and it didn't even score, but the one where I look like a ballerina back there when I'm doing all those, like I fake the handoff, then I fake like behind my back, or I fake behind my back, and then I fake a handoff, and then I pitch it to Bond, and he goes however many 50, 60 yards, whatever it was. But I mean, it's just stuff like that. I mean, the amount of just eye candy and misdirection we put on the defense. I wouldn't know what to do if I was a linebacker or D lineman, seeing all that stuff going on in the backfield.
People don't talk about that, like the slow developing plays that you guys have that find a way to work. Do you have moments where you're back there and you're thinking to yourself, I just have to have faith in the scheme, because if I don't, and if I'm like all of a sudden turning back when I'm not supposed to, I can get clocked. And that the whole like mental process that you go through in a play like that is, I imagine, is really different than what a lot of other plays you guys draw up, and like how you would process that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of our plays are like the timing has to be perfect on a lot of our plays, I guess, whether that be emotion or, like you said, all the slow developing plays that we do have in our offense. I mean, that part makes it a lot of fun, because I feel like all the timing is pretty much on me, and it's fun for sure.
I won't ask you to do like the update, like, oh, where are you at with your NFL decision? Because I know you're focused on winning college football playoff games. But whenever that time comes, what do you believe is your best quality that you're going to be able to sell in these front office meetings?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, I played a lot of football, and that was the main reason me coming back, is just to have, more experience. And obviously playing under Coach Sark, I feel like just gives me an edge. I mean, he just had a lot of success with college football guys and then first round draft picks. I feel like we have one of the closest NFL schemes in college for sure, with Sark coming from Atlanta and the NFL and all that stuff. But yeah.
Last year when you did the weight loss, did you know that they talked about it every single time on the broadcasts, and you lost that weight, and it was like, oh, hey, when's the middle of the first quarter where they're going to bring up the weight loss journey, like everything you went through in the off season? You probably went through so many production meetings where that was brought up, and they felt like they had to throw that in there.
Yeah, no, I didn't know they brought it up every single game, but I feel like that was big for my game for sure, though, to just drop that weight and be able to be a little more mobile and be able to scramble and make plays down the field. But yeah, I had no idea that they played that every single game.
It was a lot, yeah, but understandably so. It coincided with the improvement for sure. Last one for you before we get to some rapid fire. What do we on the outside not understand about Arch that maybe you didn't even understand about him until you got to know him? Because from everything that it looks like, what we see on TV, the way that you guys interact, you guys seem like you're really tight.
Yeah, just people don't understand that. At the end of the day, we're both human beings, but we're just put in the spotlight. And, I think it's pretty silly what everybody does about the whole last name thing about him and then all the other stuff that goes on around, just the both of us. At the end of the day, we're both just trying to be the best teammates we can and just trying to bring back a national championship for the University of Texas. But no, we're good buddies, and I'm glad he's on our team for sure.
I thought you were going to say he's actually really good at the college football video game. And, despite the initial thing of like not being into it. Oh yeah, no, that's the thing that people didn't realize is he's actually unbelievable. And he just didn't want to spend all his time on that. That would have worked. Quinn, it's been great. I want to get you out of here in a little rapid fire, just 5 questions. First thing that comes to mind. Does that work?
Sure.
All right. First one, everybody has that thing that they look for immediately when they walk into a Dick's, no matter where they are. It always is for me. It's the workout shirts. What's that area that when you walk into a Dick's, you're like, all right, I'm going to be spending 15, 20 minutes here.
Yeah. I'm a big hoodies guy. I love a good hoodie. I keep the house super cold. It's probably 62 degrees in here right now. So yeah, it's got to be cold. So I wear hoodies every single day, no matter if it's the summertime. I'm coming home and putting a good hoodie on. So yeah.
You spent a year at Ohio State. How does the Horseshoe compare to some of the SEC stadiums that you've been in, like in Kyle Field or Bryant Denny at Alabama?
Yeah, I think all stadiums have their own unique twist to them, and all the stadiums I've played in have been a lot of fun. But the shoe gets rowdy for sure, and Kyle Field does as well. So it's hard to really differentiate environments, but they all get rowdy.
I thought I was going to be able to talk you into complimenting Kyle Field. That didn't work out. We were going to get there. What's the throw you think about when you close your eyes?
Say it again.
What's the throw that you think about when you close your eyes? You're daydreaming about football and you have this one that stands out. Is there one of those that kind of comes to mind for you?
Man, it's probably honestly a play that hasn't even happened. It's just me trying to visualize certain plays for the upcoming game or whatever.
That's a good answer. I've asked that question to a lot of people. I've never gotten that answer. I like that. What's the funniest or most memorable thing that Matthew McConaughey has said to you?
Man, the most memorable thing he's ever said, I remember, if I'm not mistaken, I think we were in Tuscaloosa and he was just in the locker room and he just put the double horns up and said, "Leave no doubt." But you know how he does it with a little dramatic, you know how it is. Just leave no doubt. I was like, all right, let's do it.
Say no more. I love that.
Oh yeah, he's cool. He's a funny guy.
All right, last one for you. What would it take for the mullet to come back? Because you look like you're kind of growing the hair out right now, and I'm just saying I don't want to speculate. You do whatever you want, but if it came back, there'd be a lot of discussion.
Yeah, man. Well, I guess we'll see. I don't know what it would take, but who knows? It might come back. You never know.
The door is open. The door is open. Oh, I love it. Quinn, on behalf of Dick's, really, really appreciate the time. Best of luck with everything that you got going on moving forward.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, well, let's close with some lad of the week. Who you got?
This is, to me, maybe the easiest lad of the week I've ever done. It is so clearly Lane Kiffin. I think that Lane Kiffin has basically epitomized what this era of college football is, which is that he is on the couch, losing his mind, talking about the playoff. I saw you replied to Marlo the other day. I think we've all been there at a state of hysteria. You find the perfect Marlo tweet
makes it onto the broadcast of Lane basically admitting, I was rooting for Tennessee, sheepishly admitting that he was rooting for Tennessee in that game. Didn't exactly support his narrative to have that play out with Tennessee getting blown out by Ohio State.
Yeah, we've all been there. You see the perfect Marler tweet, you're in that headspace, you're like, boom, this is where I need to be. And so, yeah, point being, like, I think that's the first thing. It's his tweeting incessantly, kind of like Elon style, about the playoff committee and how whatever. But then the thing about him that's underrated is a lot of people are going to key in on that. He shared a lot of just like beautiful family photos. He shared some of like his son, his random family. And then the part of it too is that like his daughter is going through a breakup with Walker Howard. I think he's been like really just like supportive of his daughter. He's like tweeted pictures of his own family and all that different stuff. So he's had a great week on social. He's actually been like, we could joke about all this different stuff that he does, but I think he's a perfect man for the times for the transfer portal. Again, his transfer class has been awesome. Also, Sage Ryan is there. But I think outside of that, this has been kind of the week for him. And I think that he is not scared to fire off the tweet. He's not scared to be emotional. And I think that, say what you will about high school recruiting, and I have, say what you will about the big names, and I have. But I think when it comes to this era of being kind of a transparent coach, kind of letting people know what's going on behind the scenes, making these last minute pitches to recruits, sharing details of your family and navigating being a dad, being a coach, all that stuff. So yeah, I think Lane is actually handling this well. I think that with the amount of, again, the trolling stuff, I think it works for his people. I think it gets the fan base fired up. That's a little bit of the politician part of it. But I think he's had a lot going on, and I think that overall he hasn't had the big misstep.
Well, don't speculate on this. I'm asking this just because I'm connecting some dots in my head. Mm-hmm. I did not know the detail about Lane's daughter dating Walker Howard, who is now transferred to Louisiana.
Yep.
And was in a weird situation this year because I, among many, assumed that he would be the backup quarterback to Jackson Dart. He was kind of billed as the quarterback of the future after transferring from LSU. And then he didn't get the backup job, and Austin Simmons did. Austin Simmons' pivotal role in that Georgia game. I'll continue to bang the drum that if he doesn't come out and do what he did and replace in place of Jackson Dart for that drive, that's a different football game. But Lane moved him back on the depth chart while he was dating his daughter?
Yeah, and you can kind of go into the gamesmanship of that. Was that a strategic move? Did they meet each other organically? Who's to say? But I think it's hard to manage. I'll put it to you that way. Like I said, he's a dad. He's got daughters kind of everywhere. He's got kind of this mixed family. And the fact that there hasn't been something get out, it really just is that transfer, which to your point, he was kind of already third on the depth chart. He wasn't getting favoritism. We've seen.
Yeah.
I mean, look, hey, if Brian Ferentz could receive that treatment, buddy, that's the thing. Like Gibbons kind of being the adult here when you think about the amount of stuff he has going on. I actually want to applaud him for that, because all it would take was him to just put out, one of those SEC quarterback screenshots on his Twitter, and it would have been toast for Mr. Walker Howard.
Kirk Ferentz, the ultimate traditional coach. Lane Kiffin, the ultimate modern coach. This is how you're supposed to treat family. All right? This is nepotism. That's such a 20th century practice. You got to humble these kids these days. They need that type of stuff. Golly, interesting. I did not think you were. I didn't think that would be your obvious choice, but all right.
But when you think about it, he's a man of the times. Like you say, he's still a younger head coach. We forget about that because we've been hearing about him for 20 years. But he's having to navigate all this stuff. Be supportive. Get in the transfer portal. Tell your current team you believe in them without moving on to the transfer portal. I actually kind of think he's handled it well for his fans. It's working.
Be on TikTok all the time as well. Do this TikTok video, Dad. All right, there was an obvious choice from my lad of the week. Will, it's you. It's you. So people don't know this, but we are currently going through a significant transition right now with SDS over. We have new ownership, and so we're doing a lot of different onboarding stuff with a lot of our current employees, and so there's kind of a process right now. With a lot of people who aren't necessarily full-time with us that have, there's just a lot of logistical issues that are being figured out behind the scenes. Long story short, our producer right now is in a transitional phase, Daniel, with us. And so we found out like, hey, we actually can't have him do stuff. We can't have him doing stuff right now until all of this stuff is processed and this goes through with our new company that owns us. So at the 11th hour, Will's like, I could just step up and produce this. Now, for those who think that's just hitting a button and dropping it into a program, it is not. There's a lot more that goes into it, especially now that we have every single episode that is up on YouTube as well. Saturday Down South YouTube. Shout out, go follow, subscribe, do all that. But Will stepped up and has been so important for us over the course of the last couple of weeks during a very, very busy time in the college football calendar. I just want you to know that you are greatly appreciated. You are a man that has worn a million different hats for SDS over the years, and you stepping up during a time in which, look, you don't have to be doing this, and you're just like, oh, I got you, and it meant a lot. So thank you to Will, because otherwise, I mean, honestly, we would have episodes that just wouldn't be up, and we wouldn't be talking about this right now. So Will has been the MVP of this podcast, certainly during this very, very crucial time with college football.
Appreciate that, man. You make me emotional out here. But yeah, I mean, SDS made me into the employee creative that I am, that I can do a little bit of everything. So didn't lose that ability, when I got into the corporate world. So whatever y'all need, I got you. It's a dream to be sitting here watching bowl games and being able to tell my mom I need to do it. So at the end of the day, sometimes, especially being around family, it's like you really focus on what's important. And this stuff's pretty cool, man. So it's not like, it's not too hard for me. And I just love being here.
So if there's any issues whatsoever with the podcast, just blame Will.
Blame me. I'm kidding. You're about to get the at right here. Go so hard. Let your boy know. I'll walk home from the Birmingham Bowl. We'll get it done.
Yeah. Let me close with one note here. Can I preach for a second? Can I get a little bit serious for a minute?
Let's do it.
So today is my least favorite day of the year, December 26th, not just because it's the day after Christmas. It's also the anniversary that my dad died. And it's been 7 years since that happened. I've talked about that a lot and processing grief. But I just want to say, I know for a lot of families, the holidays are a very difficult time with grief and processing that. And I know for me personally, speaking on this, sometimes you go to dark places and you think that you're very alone in the way that you are dealing with your grief, and just want to kind of let the people know you're not alone, and there are a lot of resources out there to be able to go out and get help. And I would recommend anybody that's dealing with that right now to do so, and just know that there are people that can help you with that. And it's something that I think about a lot, and hopefully I've been able to share with my experiences that it is a normal thing, that everybody, is dealing with some form of loss at some point in life. And I know for me personally, these days can be very difficult. And I have a lot of moments where I look up and I'm like, dang, guys, I get to talk about college football. I have a family that I love. I have so much support, and I'm extremely grateful for that. And so sometimes I'll try and put those feelings on the back burner of like, hey, don't think about this. Don't think about the loss of your dad. We lost my cousin this year. I talked about that as well, and how hard that's been on our family. But the holidays are just a really difficult time to deal with that. And please seek resources. Please reach out to people. Let people know that you're struggling, because people want to help and people want to be there for you. So if I could leave you with anything as we come to an end of this 2024 year, please seek that help. You will be listened to, and you will be cared for.
Man. Yeah, and honestly, when you were talking about Loud of the Week, I thought you were going to go in that direction, so I'm double emotional now. But yeah, man, I mean, same deal, man. I'm here for you. We actually watched my parents' wedding video. They have a anniversary in December, and looking around, seeing my grandparents and what life was, when I was in Louisiana. It's reminded of the classic phrase, I'm not going to tell you this is easy, but I'm going to tell you it's hard and you're ready. And as we start to grow up, when you have a family of your own and everything, it's pretty cool to see all that. And our roles change. We're no longer those kids running around, asking what we're getting for Christmas, and we got to be part of the solution, be part of the structure. But it's cool. It's cool to watch everybody come up. And that's what this whole thing's about, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. All right. If you have not, please leave us a 5-star review. Subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch every single episode of the Saturday Down South podcast. Follow us on Twitter at the SDS Pod, at Saturday Down South, at TV Rivera, at Chris Roy. Thanks, guys. Talk soon.